The annual Parker family reunion was in full swing at my uncle's estate, the kind of gathering where success was measured in square footage and stock portfolios. I stood in a corner watching my cousin Marcus hold court near the imported marble fireplace, champagne in hand, regaling everyone with tales of his latest business triumph. "Another record quarter," he announced, straightening his Rolex. "Probably bought on credit. Parker Technologies is expanding again. We just leased the entire top floor of the Diamond Tower downtown." I hid my smile behind my wine glass. The Diamond Tower, my latest real estate acquisition, purchased through one of my many shell corporations. Marcus had no idea he'd been negotiating his incredible deal with one of my property managers. "Sarah." My Aunt Beverly's shrill voice cut through my thoughts. "Come join the conversation. Tell everyone about what do you call it? Your little shop." I turned, meeting her patronizing smile with practiced patience. At 32, I owned half the commercial real estate in the city through my investment firm, but to my family I was just Sarah with her cute little vintage clothing store downtown. "It's doing well, Aunt Beverly," I replied quietly. "Thanks for asking." Marcus laughed, the sound echoing off the high ceilings. "Still playing shopkeeper, cousin? If you ever want to see how real business works, I could give you a tour of my company. Show you what actual success looks like." The irony almost made me choke on my drink. Marcus's success consisted mainly of over-leveraged expansions and desperate attempts to impress investors. His company was 3 months behind on rent in my building. "That's so kind of you, Marcus," I said, maintaining my modest facade. My cousin Emma, fresh from her latest shopping spree with Daddy's credit card, joined the conversation. "Sarah, honey, when are you going to get serious about your future? You can't play with clothes forever." They only knew. My little shop was actually a front for my real estate empire, Monarch Investment Group. I'd started small, buying a rundown storefront with my savings 7 years ago. Now I owned billions in prime commercial property, all hidden behind layers of corporations and holding companies. "I'm comfortable where I am," I replied. Uncle Richard, Marcus's father and self-proclaimed family patriarch, scoffed. "Comfortable isn't enough in this family, Sarah. Look at Marcus, expanding his tech company, making real moves in the business world. That's the Parker way." I watched Marcus preen under his father's praise, remembering how different things had been just a few years ago. When I'd first opened my shop, Marcus had been the first to mock me. "Retail is dead," he declared at the Christmas party. "But I guess some people aren't meant for bigger things." Now his company's survival depended on the very property he didn't know I owned. "Speaking of expansion," Marcus announced, swirling his champagne, "we just signed a deal to take over the entire west wing of the Diamond Tower. 40,000 square feet of prime office space. The landlord practically begged us to take it." Several relatives murmured appreciatively. I bit back a laugh, knowing the truth. My property manager had actually raised the rent 20% during negotiations, and Marcus had agreed out of desperation to maintain appearances. "Must be expensive," I commented innocently. Marcus waved his hand dismissively. "That's what success looks like, Sarah. Not everyone can understand the complexities of high-level business dealings. Some of us are built for bigger things than running a small shop." Just then my phone buzzed. The caller ID showed Diamond Tower Management. "Excuse me," I said, stepping aside. "I need to take this." "Probably a customer asking about vintage sweaters," Emma stage whispered, generating snickers from the gathered relatives. I answered, putting the call on speaker deliberately. "Yes, Mr. Harrison?" My property manager's voice filled the air. "Ms. Parker, sorry to bother you, but we need your decision on the Diamond Tower situation. Parker Technologies is 3 months behind on rent, and their latest check bounced. Should we proceed with eviction notices?" Marcus's champagne glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the imported tile floor. "Furthermore," Mr. Harrison continued, "their proposal to lease the West Wing has been rejected by the board. Given their payment history, we don't feel they're financially stable enough for expansion." The room had gone deadly quiet. Every eye was fixed on me as I calmly reached into my purse and pulled out a folder. The complete lease agreement for Parker Technologies, with my signature on the final page as owner of the Diamond Tower. "Actually," I said, my voice carrying in the silence, "I think it's time we discuss the terms of your lease in person, cousin." The silence in the room was absolute. Marcus stared at the lease agreement in my hands, his face cycling through shades of red and white. Aunt Beverly's perfectly Botoxed expression had frozen in shock, and Uncle Richard looked like he might need his heart medication. This has to be a joke, Marcus finally sputtered. You're just a shop owner. I smiled, placing the lease agreement on the marble coffee table. Actually, the vintage store is more of a hobby. Monarch Investment Group is my real business. Emma, who had been scrolling frantically on her phone, gasped. Monarch Investment? The company that owns half the commercial properties downtown. Among other things, I replied, taking a sip of wine. We've been quite busy lately. Just acquired the Marina District development, the Westview office complex, and... I paused for effect, the entire Diamond Tower. Uncle Richard's hand trembled as he reached for the lease agreement. But Monarch is a billion-dollar company. The newspapers say it's run by some mysterious real estate mogul who never appears in public. Sarah Parker, so, I said, extending my hand mockingly. Though I prefer to stay out of the spotlight. It's amazing what people reveal about themselves when they think you're just a small business owner. Marcus collapsed onto the Italian leather sofa, loosening his tie. The rent increase, the expansion rejection. That was all you? Business is business, cousin. Speaking of which, I pulled out my phone. Should I have Mr. Harrison proceed with the eviction notices? You can't do this, Marcus pleaded, his arrogance evaporating. We have contracts, agreements. All of which you've breached by failing to pay rent for 3 months. I scrolled through my emails. Not to mention the bounced checks, the unauthorized office modifications, and the interesting creative accounting in your submitted financial statements. Aunt Beverly stepped forward, her social climbing instincts kicking in. Sarah, darling, surely we can work something out. We're family after all. Family. I laughed softly. Let's talk about family. I opened another folder on my phone, projecting it onto the massive TV screen that dominated one wall. 2016. Marcus tells everyone my shop will fail within 6 months. 2017. Uncle Richard advises his golf club friends not to do business with me because I'm just playing at being an entrepreneur. 2018. Aunt Beverly suggests I should focus on finding a husband instead of wasting time with retail. The photos and recordings played across the screen, years of subtle insults, dismissive comments, and condescending advice, all meticulously documented. 2019, I continued. Emma here starts a rumor that my shop is a money laundering front because, and I quote, how else could someone so basic afford that location? I smiled at my cousin. The answer, Emma, is that I own the building. But why keep it secret? Marcus demanded. Why pretend to be small time? Because money doesn't just reveal who you are. It reveals who everyone else is. I walked over to the bar, pouring myself another glass of wine. Every lease application that crossed my desk, every business proposal, every investment opportunity. I saw how you all treated people you thought were beneath you. Uncle Richard's face darkened. Now see here, young lady. No, you see here, I cut him off. Parker Technologies' latest loan application? Rejected by 3 banks this month. Care to guess who owns controlling interest in those banks? Marcus went pale. The expansion plans, our investors. Will be very interested to learn about your company's real financial situation. I picked up the lease agreement. Unless what? Marcus asked desperately. Unless we renegotiate. Not just the lease but everything. I sat down in Uncle Richard's favorite armchair. The one he never let anyone else use. First, Parker Technologies will undergo a complete restructuring. New management, new board, new direction. You're taking over my company? Marcus whispered. Saving it, actually. Though your role will be significantly reduced. I smiled. Think of it as a learning opportunity. You wanted to show me how real business works, remember? Emma tried to sneak out of the room, but I wasn't finished. Oh, and Emma? That boutique you've been planning to open with Daddy's money? The lease you signed last week for that prime location on 5th Avenue? She froze. What about it? Monarch owns that building too. Unfortunately, the space has just been leased to another tenant. My vintage shop is expanding. The room erupted in chaos. Marcus buried his face in his hands. probably calculating how quickly his carefully constructed image of success would crumble. Emma burst into tears, her boutique dreams evaporating. Aunt Beverly looked like she'd swallowed her expensive pearls. My phone buzzed again. "Miss Parker, your helicopter is waiting. The Singapore investors are expecting you for dinner." "Thank you, Harrison." I stood up, smoothing my basic dress. A one-of-a-kind piece that cost more than Marcus's car. "I should go. Real business calls." "Wait." Marcus jumped up. "What about Parker Technologies? What about our lease? Check your email tomorrow. My lawyers will be in touch with the restructuring details." I headed for the door, then paused. "Oh, and Marcus? The rent's going up another 20%. That's what success looks like, cousin." Uncle Richard finally found his voice. "Sarah, please. Think about what you're doing to this family." "I have thought about it. For 7 years I've thought about every snide comment, every dismissive gesture, every time you made me feel small. I turned to face them one last time. Now you know how it feels." As I walked out to my waiting helicopter, I heard the chaos erupting behind me. My phone started buzzing with messages. "Marcus. Please, we need to talk about the company." "Emma. Sarah, I'm so sorry about everything." "Aunt Beverly. Darling, let's discuss this over lunch at the club." "Uncle Richard. This isn't the Parker way of doing business." I smiled, typing a single response to the family group chat. "Unfortunately, I'm too busy playing shopkeeper to respond. Feel free to stop by my little store if you need anything. I hear the rent in that area is quite reasonable. At least it is if you own the building." The next morning, my assistant handed me the daily reports. Parker Technologies stock dropped 30% overnight. Rumors about their financial stability are spreading. As expected. "Your cousin Emma has applied for a job at your vintage store. She attached a very lengthy apology letter. File it with the others. And your Uncle Richard wants to know if you'll be attending the next family reunion." I looked up from my desk where I was finalizing the acquisition of another office tower. This one housing several of my relatives' struggling businesses. "Tell him I'll have to check my schedule. Running a little shop keeps me quite busy." "And the vintage store's expansion?" "Proceeding as planned." I smiled. "Though maybe we should add a section for designer accessories. I hear Emma has quite a collection she might need to sell soon." My phone buzzed one final time. Marcus, probably making another desperate plea to save his company. I turned off the phone and focused on my empire. After all, success isn't just about owning buildings. It's about building something that towers over those who once looked down on you. And I was just getting started. The next family reunion would be very interesting indeed. Especially since I'd just purchased Uncle Richard's estate at a foreclosure auction. Sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold. It's served with a lease agreement and an eviction notice. I sat in the gleaming boardroom of Harrison Global, my family's company, watching my uncle's face turn red with rage. The quarterly shareholders' meeting had devolved into yet another attack on my ability to contribute to the business. "For God's sake, Sophia," Uncle Richard slammed his hand on the mahogany table. "You've been here 3 years and what have you accomplished? Your division is bleeding money." Of course it was. They'd put me in charge of their dying print media branch. A deliberate setup for failure. Meanwhile, my cousin Drew ran the profitable digital sector, despite having half my qualifications and none of my tech background. "If you'd let me implement the digital transformation plan I proposed," I started. "More of your wild ideas about AI and automation?" Drew smirked from across the table. "This is a real business, cousin, not one of your tech fantasies." I looked around the room at the faces I'd known all my life. Aunt Margaret, examining her manicure with practiced indifference. Cousin Victoria, hiding her smile behind a coffee cup. The board members, all family friends, avoiding eye contact. My father would have defended me. But he died 5 years ago, leaving me his board seat and 15% of Harrison Global's shares. They'd been trying to push me out ever since. "The numbers don't lie," Uncle Richard continued, pulling up a PowerPoint slide. "Your division's losses are dragging down our entire quarterly report. The board has concerns." Of course they did. The same board that approved Drew's excessive spending on outdated systems but rejected every innovation I suggested. "I moved to have Sophia removed from her position," Drew announced, straightening his designer tie. And given her limited business acumen, perhaps it's best if she sells her shares to those who understand the company's true value. The room hummed with murmurs of agreement. I noticed several board members nodding. They'd clearly discussed this before the meeting. All in favor? Uncle Richard asked, not even bothering to hide his satisfaction. Hands rose around the table. Even Aunt Margaret, who'd spent every Christmas telling me how much I reminded her of my father, voted to oust me. Well, Sophia, Uncle Richard's voice dripped with fake sympathy, the board has spoken. You have until the end of the week to clear out your office. As for your shares. He slid a document across the table. We're prepared to offer you a generous buyout. I picked up the paper, examining the offer with an expressionless face. The amount was well below market value. They expected me to be too naive to notice. What they didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this moment for 2 years. While they thought I was failing at running their print media division, I'd been watching, learning, and building something of my own. Nova Investment Group, a company that specialized in acquiring and modernizing traditional businesses. I'd used my trust fund to start it, operating through shell companies and private holdings to keep my name hidden. In 2 years, we'd acquired and transformed 12 companies, turning dying businesses into digital powerhouses. My wild ideas about AI and automation had made Nova one of the fastest-growing investment firms in the country. But to my family, I was still just poor, weak Sophia who couldn't possibly understand real business. You're right, I said quietly, looking Uncle Richard in the eye. I should sell my shares. His eyebrows shot up. He'd clearly expected more resistance. In fact, I continued, pulling out my phone, I already have a buyer lined up. They've been quite interested in Harrison Global's potential. What are you talking about? Drew's smirk faltered slightly. You can't sell without board approval. Actually, I can. Dad made sure my shares came with unrestricted transfer rights. Check the bylaws. Uncle Richard's face paled. He knew I was right. He'd helped write those bylaws himself. Who's the buyer? Aunt Margaret finally looked up from her manicure, a hint of worry crossing her face. I smiled, remembering all the times they'd dismissed my ideas, mocked my suggestions, and treated me like a child playing at business. Nova Investment Group, I said calmly. They specialize in digital transformation of traditional companies. In fact, I checked my watch. Their offer to purchase my shares should be arriving any moment. As if on cue, the boardroom door opened. My assistant walked in carrying a thick envelope. The contracts you requested, Ms. Harrison, she said, using my real name, not the fake one I used at Nova. The room went silent as I opened the envelope and began spreading documents across the table. Purchase agreements, transfer forms, and most importantly, Nova Investment Group's complete portfolio, showing our successful company transformations and our $2.8 billion in assets under management. You see, I looked around the table, enjoying their shocked expressions. While you were all busy underestimating me, I was building something rather impressive. And now, I smiled, I think it's time for Harrison Global to undergo some changes. Drew grabbed the portfolio, his hands shaking as he flipped through the pages. This is impossible. You couldn't have. This company is worth billions. Amazing what can happen when you actually listen to those wild ideas about AI and automation, isn't it? Uncle Richard's face had turned from pale to gray. You're Nova's CEO? The company that's been buying up traditional businesses. Founder and CEO, I corrected him. And we don't just buy businesses, Uncle Richard. We transform them. Bring them into the digital age. Exactly what I've been trying to do here for 3 years. I stood up, smoothing my skirt. Now about that buyout offer. I pulled out another document from my briefcase. Here's my counteroffer. Nova Investment Group will purchase my 15% stake in Harrison Global at fair market value, significantly higher than your insulting proposal. This is ridiculous, Drew sputtered. You can't seriously expect us to believe that I built a successful company while you were all mocking my ideas? I clicked a button on my phone and the boardroom screens came to life. Let me show you exactly what Nova Investment Group has been doing. The screens filled with data. Financial charts, acquisition histories, digital transformation metrics. Every success they dismissed as impossible was there in stark, undeniable numbers. In the past 2 years, I continued, Nova has transformed 12 traditional companies into digital leaders. Our average post-acquisition revenue growth is 312%. And our technology division, you know, the one with all those wild ideas, holds 23 patents for AI-driven business solutions. Uncle Richard's hands gripped the edge of the table. Why all the secrecy? Why hide behind Nova? Because you taught me well, I smiled coldly. Wasn't it you who always said, never let them see you coming? Besides, it was fascinating to watch you dismiss Nova's market presence while simultaneously complaining about losing business to our transformed companies. Aunt Margaret leaned forward, her carefully maintained composure cracking. But your division here, the losses, were carefully managed, I finished for her. I needed you to underestimate me to keep pushing me out. Every decision you made played right into my strategy. Strategy. Victoria finally spoke, her voice sharp. What strategy? I clicked to the next slide, showing Nova's complete analysis of Harrison Global. While you were all busy mocking my performance, I was conducting the most thorough evaluation of this company's weaknesses and potential. Every failed project, every outdated system, every missed opportunity, I documented it all. Drew's face had turned an interesting shade of white. The digital sector reports I sent you were incredibly helpful, I nodded. Though you might want to be more careful about sharing confidential data with someone you consider incompetent. I stood up, walking slowly around the table. Nova doesn't just want my 15% stake. We're preparing to make an offer for controlling interest in Harrison Global. And thanks to your meticulous efforts to prove my incompetence, we have everything we need to convince the remaining shareholders that new management is necessary. You can't do this, Uncle Richard's voice shook. This is your family's company. Family. I stopped behind his chair. Like when you blocked my promotion last year. Or when you gave Drew my father's office the day after his funeral. That kind of family. The room fell silent. Even the board members who had so eagerly voted to remove me were now staring at their hands, avoiding eye contact. I returned to my seat, pulling out one final document. Nova's official offer will be presented tomorrow. But I thought you deserved a preview. After all, we're family. The number on the page made Victoria gasp. Drew actually swayed in his chair. This is a courtesy, I continued. A chance to accept gracefully before we take this to the shareholders. And believe me, they'll be very interested in Nova's track record of transforming outdated companies into modern, profitable enterprises. And if we refuse? Uncle Richard's voice was barely a whisper. Then I release my complete analysis of Harrison Global's systemic failures under current management, including some rather questionable decisions about resource allocation, particularly in Drew's division. I smiled at my cousin. Those confidential reports were really quite revealing. My assistant appeared at the door again. Miss Harrison, your next meeting is in 15 minutes. The Nova board is waiting. Thank you, Claire. I began gathering my documents. You have until 9 a.m. tomorrow to accept the offer. After that, Nova begins acquiring shares on the open market. And given your recent performance, I glanced at the financial charts still displayed on the screens. I suspect many shareholders will be eager to sell. Wait, Aunt Margaret called as I reached the door. What happens to us? To the family. I turned back, remembering all the family dinners where they'd belittled my ideas. All the board meetings where they dismissed my suggestions. That depends. Nova typically retains employees who demonstrate actual value. Those who've been coasting on family connections, however. I let the sentence hang. Well, I hear the job market is quite competitive these days. The news broke the next morning. Nova Investment Group acquires controlling interest in Harrison Global. The business world was stunned to learn that Nova's mysterious founder was the same person Harrison's board had just voted to remove. Uncle Richard took early retirement rather than work under my leadership. Drew lasted 3 months before resigning. He couldn't handle reporting to the cousin he'd spent years mocking. Victoria and Aunt Margaret sold their shares and moved to Florida, where they reportedly tell anyone who'll listen about their ungrateful niece who stole the family company. The transformation of Harrison Global became Nova's most successful project yet. We implemented every innovation they'd rejected, modernized every system they'd clung to, and within a year the company's value had tripled. I kept the boardroom exactly as it was, though. The same mahogany table where they'd voted to remove me now hosts Nova's executive meetings. Sometimes when I'm sitting in Uncle Richard's old chair, making decisions that shape the company's future, I think about that last board meeting. They thought they were getting rid of a weak link. Instead, they drove me to build something powerful enough to take everything from them. Last week, Drew applied for a job at one of Nova's subsidiary companies. His resume cited his experience leading digital transformation at Harrison Global. I had Claire send him our standard rejection letter. We're looking for candidates with genuine innovation experience. The Harrison Global building looks different now. Modern, open, dynamic. The only thing I kept unchanged was the lobby sign, though I added a small plaque beneath it. A Nova Investment Group company, embracing the future they feared. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's success they can't ignore, can't dismiss, and can't escape. Every time they see Harrison Global in the news, topping industry rankings and breaking revenue records, they're reminded of the weak niche they underestimated. As for me, I'm still acquiring companies, still transforming outdated businesses into modern successes. But now everyone knows exactly who they're dealing with. After all, I learned from the best. They taught me everything about family business, especially how to take it away from family who doesn't deserve it. The email from First National Title Insurance arrived at 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Subject line: Ownership discrepancy requiring immediate clarification, 2847 Lakeshore Drive. I was in my downtown office when I opened it. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air. My assistant had just placed the morning reports on my desk. Rental income statements from 14 properties, maintenance schedules, tenant communications. All routine. All mine. The email was not routine. Dear Ms. Caroline Winters, we are conducting title search on property located at 2847 Lakeshore Drive in connection with equity line application filed by Marcus Winters. Our records indicate you are sole owner of record since May 2016. Please contact our office immediately to clarify this discrepancy. My hand went still on the mouse. Marcus. My brother. Dad's lake house. The house I'd purchased from Dad 8 years ago when he couldn't afford the property taxes anymore. The house where I'd spent every weekend for 3 months renovating the dock he'd let rot. The house he told everyone I borrowed money to waste on. I called the title company within 5 minutes. Ms. Winters, thank you for your prompt response, the title officer said. Her voice was crisp, professional. We have a delicate situation. Your brother Marcus Winters submitted an equity line application for $150,000 on property at 2847 Lakeshore Drive. He claims inheritance from your father. Your mother, Patricia Winters, co-signed the application and notarized his signature, claiming shared family ownership. My jaw tightened, that little tell when I'm trying not to react. The property is mine, I said evenly. Purchased May 14, 2016. I have the deed, closing documents, 8 years of tax payments and insurance records. We see that in our search, she confirmed. There's another issue. When we ran the title search, we discovered you own 13 additional properties in this county. Your brother's application lists his assets as family lake house only. If he's unaware of your property holdings, this suggests he genuinely believes he owns something he doesn't, I finished. There was a pause. The soft sound of typing. Ms. Winters, we're obligated to report suspected fraud to our underwriting department. Given your mother notarized documents claiming ownership she doesn't possess, her notary commission is now under investigation. I'm very sorry. I wasn't sorry. The ghost ledger. That night I opened a new spreadsheet. Titled it, The Cost of Being Invisible. Item 1. Lake House Purchase May 2016. Dad to family, Caroline's borrowing money she can't afford. Reckless. She'll lose it. Reality, paid cash. He knew. He cashed my check. Cost. Being called financially irresponsible while saving his credit score. Item 2. Every family gathering 2016 to 2024. Marcus, still got that money pit, Caroline? When you gonna admit defeat? Mom, a woman your age should focus on marriage, not properties. Count, 47 gatherings. 47 dismissals. Cost, self-doubt I fought every single time. Item 3. Dad's 70th birthday 2019. Dad's toast. To my son Marcus, who'll carry on the family legacy. Me sitting there, owner of 6 properties by then. Cost. Invisibility at my own father's table. Item 4. Christmas 2022. Marcus announced his real estate investment course completion. Family applauded. Asked his advice. Me, silent owner of 11 properties, $340,000 annual rental income. Cost. Watching my expertise ignored while his certificate was framed. Item 5. Mom's notary commission. Used to notarize Marcus's fraudulent equity line application. The same commission I'd helped her study for, driving her to the exam twice. Cost. My own help weaponized against me. The spreadsheet grew. Every missed birthday they forgot while celebrating Marcus's promotion. Every time Dad called him the successful one, while I was building an empire he couldn't see. Every family photo I wasn't invited to because I wasn't doing anything impressive. The numbers told one story. The ghost ledger told another. The internal framework. There's a concept in psychology, the gambler's fallacy. The belief that if you just pull the slot machine lever one more time, the jackpot becomes mathematically inevitable. I'd been playing that slot machine with my family for 8 years. Bought the lake house, maybe now they'll see. Renovated it, maybe now they'll notice. Bought properties 2, 3, 4, maybe now they'll ask. Hit property 14, maybe now they'll understand. But the jackpot I was chasing, their recognition, their respect, their acknowledgement, was never in the machine at all. I remember the exact moment I understood this. Dad's living room, December 2017. I'd just closed on my 3rd property, a historic building downtown that would become the cornerstone of my portfolio. I was excited. Foolishly I mentioned it. Dad barely looked up from his newspaper. Another one. Caroline, when are you going to do something serious with your life? That was the moment. The cold night air from his open window hit my face, sharp and biting. I could smell the wood smoke from his fireplace, the specific scent of oak burning. My hands gripped my purse strap so tightly the leather left marks on my palms. I realized then, their narrative about me was more important than my reality. I was the daughter who needed saving. The one who made reckless choices. The one who should have married well instead of building wealth. My success didn't fit their story. So they edited me out. Revenge isn't rage. It's patience sharpened into strategy. It's building something so undeniable that when the truth arrives, it arrives like an avalanche. The procedural cascade. The title company's investigation moved like clockwork. Day 1. Evidence collection. I spent 4 hours organizing documents. 14 property deeds, thick legal paper with raised seals. Tax payment records going back 8 years, each stamped and verified by the county. Insurance declarations. Rental agreements showing $28,500 monthly income across my portfolio. Bank statements proving $2.3 million in real estate equity. I backed up everything to 3 separate drives. Scanned every document. Created a master timeline showing each acquisition, each improvement, each milestone Marcus and Mom had dismissed. Day 2. Title company review. Senior underwriter called. Ms. Winters, we've completed our analysis. Your documentation is immaculate. Your brother's application contains multiple false statements. Most critically, your mother's notarization of his signature on documents claiming ownership of property she knew you owned. That's notarial misconduct. What happens now? I asked. We've submitted our findings to the state notary public administrator. We're denying the equity line application. And we're flagging this as attempted fraud with the lender. Day 3. State investigation. The state notary public administrator moved fast. They contacted me for a statement. I provided everything. The timeline, the documentation, the history of family dismissal that led to this moment. They interviewed the lender. The loan officer admitted Mom had seemed very confident about family ownership. Had notarized Marcus's signature right there in the bank lobby. Had laughed about finally making the lake house work for the family. Day 4. Counter evidence presented. Marcus hired a lawyer. Submitted a handwritten document allegedly from Dad, dated 2015, promising the lake house to Marcus upon Dad's eventual passing. The title company's forensic document examiner took one look. The ink is from a pen manufactured in 2021, she reported. The paper stock wasn't produced until 2020. The handwriting shows tremor patterns consistent with someone in their 30s attempting to mimic elderly writing. Statistical confidence. 97.3% forgery. Day 5. Systematic dismantling. The title company's attorney laid it out in an email I'll never delete. Mr. Marcus Winters' claims fail on every evidentiary basis. No deed showing his ownership failed. No tax payments from him in 8 years failed. No insurance policies in his name failed. Forged document contradicted by public records failed. Title held solely by Caroline Winters since 2016 confirmed. Patricia Winters' notarization of false ownership claim misconduct confirmed. Day 8. Formal rulings. State Notary Administrator. Patricia Winters' Notary Commission is hereby suspended pending full investigation into notarial misconduct and potential criminal charges for fraud facilitation. Lenders Fraud Department. Application denied. Marcus Winters flagged for attempted equity fraud. 5-year ban from loan products with this institution. Day 12. Enforcement. Mom received certified letter. Notary Commission suspended immediately. $15,000 bond forfeited. Criminal investigation opened. Marcus received certified letter. Equity application denied. Fraud alert placed on credit report. Potential criminal charges pending. Day 19. Appeals denied. Marcus's attorney filed emergency appeal claiming family misunderstanding. State administrator's response filed same day, denied. Forged documents and false notarization constitute fraud, not misunderstanding. Investigation proceeds. The machine of justice once activated was relentless. The revelation cascade. The full scope of my portfolio came out in depositions. Property 1, the Lake House. 2847 Lakeshore Drive. Purchased for $340,000 cash when Dad couldn't afford taxes. Property 2, downtown office building. Dad called it throwing money away. Now worth $890,000. Property 3, the historic Riverside Theater. Mom said, who would rent that? Fully leased $6,200 monthly income. Properties 4 to 7, residential fourplex portfolio. Marcus said I was playing landlord. $142,000 annual rental income. Property 8, the restaurant building on Main Street. The French bistro where they celebrated Dad's 70th. Where Marcus proposed to his wife. Where Mom hosted her book club. They'd never known I owned it. Property 9, Medical Plaza. 3 doctors' offices. Stable, professional tenants. Property 10, the building housing Marcus's favorite sports bar. Where he watched every game. Where family gathered for Super Bowl parties. I'd owned it for 4 years. Properties 11 to 12, lakefront vacation rentals. $4,500 per week in season. Property 13, commercial warehouse. Boring but profitable. $7,800 monthly. Property 14, the old Hartley Mansion converted to executive offices. Featured in the city's historic preservation newsletter. I'd received an award for its restoration. Attended the ceremony alone. Family said they were too busy. Each revelation was its own earthquake. The consequences. Criminal. Marcus faced potential fraud charges. The forged document triggered felony investigation. Mom's notarial misconduct carried possible jail time. 1 to 3 years for notarizing fraudulent property claims. Professional. Mom's 20-year notary career ended. Her small business, which relied on notary services, lost 60% of revenue within 3 weeks. Financial. Marcus's credit score dropped 140 points from the fraud alert. He couldn't refinance his own house. His wife left him within 2 months, taking their savings. Social. The story leaked. Small town word travels. The Winters family tried to steal their daughter's property empire. Became coffee shop conversation for months. Family business. Dad's consulting firm lost 3 major clients who didn't want association with fraud. Revenue dropped 40%. Scorched earth ending. 6 months later I stood in my downtown office. Same desk. Same morning coffee ritual. Different life. Property 15 closed escrow that morning. A bookstore building near the college. The owner called me personally to thank me for preserving it. My phone buzzed. Mom's number. I didn't answer. The restraining order was still active. She'd violated it twice already. Once showing up at Property 8's restaurant, once sending a letter claiming family misunderstanding. There was no misunderstanding. There was fraud, consequence, and enforcement. Marcus lost his house to foreclosure last month. Mom sold hers to pay legal fees. Dad's firm filed bankruptcy in April. They reaped what they sowed. I've built something that doesn't need their validation. 14 properties that exist whether they acknowledge them or not. A portfolio that generates $340,000 annually whether they call it reckless or not. An empire that stands on documentation, not family approval. The ghost ledger is closed. The balance is settled. The account is zeroed. From the 14 fortresses I fought to protect, my future begins now.
I stared at the email in disbelief, my coffee growing cold beside my keyboard. The largest contract of my career, gone. Stolen by my own brother. I'm sorry, Sarah, the message read. But Michael made a compelling case for why Aerotech should work with his team instead. His connections with our board members were persuasive. I should have known better. I should have seen it coming. But I never thought my own brother would stoop so low. I'm Sarah Mitchell, founder of Mitchell Innovation Labs, and this is how my brother's betrayal led to the greatest revelation of his life. The funny thing about betrayal is how quiet it can be. No dramatic music, no warning signs. Just a simple email on a Tuesday morning telling me that the $50 million contract I'd spent 6 months negotiating had suddenly gone to my brother's consulting firm. My phone buzzed. Speaking of the devil. Hey sis, Michael's voice dripped with fake sympathy. Heard about Aerotech. Tough break, but you know how business goes. May the best man win. I gripped my phone tighter. Cut the act, Michael. I know what you did. You went behind my back to their board members. He laughed. Oh, come on. Don't be such a sore loser. I just played the game better. Besides, everyone knows Mitchell Consulting Group has more resources, better connections. What can your little startup offer compared to that? Mitchell Consulting Group. Our father's company, now run by Michael. The legitimate family business, as our father called it. The one I'd refused to join 5 years ago when I started my own firm. Those were my designs, Michael. My innovation strategy. You can't just. Can't what? He cut in. Can't use my connections. Can't convince a client to make a smarter choice. Face it, Sarah. You're out of your league. Always have been. I closed my eyes, remembering all the times he pulled stunts like this. Taking credit for my ideas in college. Undermining my projects at my first job. Always with that same smug certainty that he deserved whatever he took. The signing ceremony is Thursday, he continued. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone how close you came to landing this. Wouldn't want to embarrass you. I ended the call without responding. My hands were shaking, but not from anger, from anticipation. Because there was something Michael didn't know, something no one knew except my most trusted advisors. I opened my laptop and clicked through to a secure folder. Inside was a document I'd been saving for the right moment, proof of every underhanded tactic, every stolen idea, every backroom deal Michael had made over the past 3 years. More importantly, it contained proof of something that would shake Mitchell Consulting Group to its core. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from David Chen, CEO of Aerotech. Sarah, everything proceeding as discussed. Is M taking the bait? I smiled, typing back, hook, line, and sinker. You see, Michael wasn't the only one who could play the long game. For the past year, I've been quietly building something much bigger than a single contract. Something that would change everything. My assistant Lisa knocked on my office door. The board members are ready for your call. I nodded, straightening my jacket, put them through to the conference room. The large screen lit up, revealing 5 serious faces. The secret board of directors of Nova Holdings, a shell company that had been systematically acquiring shares of Mitchell Consulting Group through various subsidiaries. Ms. Mitchell, the head of the board, nodded. The final transfers are complete. As of 9 a.m. this morning, Nova Holdings owns 51% of Mitchell Consulting Group. I felt a small smile tug at my lips. And the paperwork? All in order. Your identity as Nova's owner has been carefully concealed. As far as anyone knows, Nova is just another investment firm. I looked at the org chart on my wall, the real one, showing how my little startup was actually the center of a web of companies that now controlled my father's empire. Excellent. Maintain position until Thursday. I want to be there when my brother signs that contract. Sarah, one of the board members, leaned forward. Are you sure about this? Once we reveal Nova's ownership. Michael made his choice. I cut in. He chose to steal what he thought was my biggest contract. Now he gets to learn that it wasn't just the contract he should have worried about. After the call ended, I walked to my window, looking out at the Seattle skyline. 5 years ago, when I left Mitchell Consulting Group, my father had sneered that I'd never succeed on my own. Michael had laughed, certain I'd come crawling back. Instead, I built something they never saw coming. While they focused on stealing my contracts and undermining my projects, I was quietly buying up their company through a maze of shell corporations and investment firms. My phone buzzed with another text from Michael. By the way, after I signed the Aerotech contract, the board is considering acquiring your little company. You know, to save you from yourself. Just looking out for my baby sister. I didn't respond. Let him gloat. Let him think he'd won. Thursday would come soon enough. Lisa appeared at my door again. Your 2 p.m. is here. The Aerotech implementation team. I nodded. Send them in. And Lisa? Make sure everything is ready for Thursday. I want the signing ceremony to be memorable. The next 2 days passed in a blur of preparation. Michael sent more gloating texts, each one more condescending than the last. Our father called, suggesting I should be graceful about losing the contract and maybe consider coming back to the family business. If they only knew. I kept checking the secure folder on my laptop. Inside was evidence of every questionable deal Michael had made, every corner he'd cut, every regulation he'd skirted. Not enough to cause legal troubles. I didn't want to destroy the company after all, but more than enough to justify a change in leadership once Nova Holdings revealed its ownership. Wednesday night, I sat in my office late, reviewing everything one last time. The contract Michael thought he'd stolen. The ownership documents for Nova Holdings. The board resolutions that would be revealed tomorrow. My phone buzzed one last time. Michael again. Get some sleep, sis. Tomorrow's a big day. For me anyway. I looked at my reflection in the darkened window, thinking of all the times Michael had taken what was mine, certain that his position as our father's heir made him untouchable. Yes, I whispered to my reflection. Tomorrow is definitely going to be a big day. Thursday morning dawned bright and clear. I dressed carefully in my best power suit, not for the photos, but for the memories I wanted to preserve of this day. The signing ceremony was being held in Aerotech's main conference room, a gleaming space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Seattle. By 9 a.m., the room was filled with executives, board members, and media representatives. A historic contract signing, they thought. If only they knew. I arrived early, taking a seat at the back of the room. Michael strutted in 20 minutes later, radiating smugness in his custom Italian suit. He faltered slightly when he saw me but quickly recovered, throwing me a condescending smile. Sarah, didn't expect to see you here. Come to watch how the big leagues operate. Wouldn't miss it for the world, I replied calmly. Our father arrived next, making a beeline for Michael. Son, this is your moment. The biggest contract in company history. Neither of them spared me a glance. Perfect. At exactly 10 a.m., David Chen, CEO of Aerotech, stepped up to the podium. Thank you all for coming. Today marks a historic partnership between Aerotech and Mitchell Consulting Group. But before we sign, there are some corporate governance matters to address. Michael shifted impatiently in his seat. This wasn't part of the planned agenda. As you may know, David continued, recent market activities have led to some changes in Mitchell Consulting Group's ownership structure. I'd like to invite the representative from Nova Holdings to speak. The room burst into confused whispers. Michael's head snapped up. What? What changes? I stood up, smoothing my jacket as I walked to the podium. Michael's face went from confused to shocked to pale as I took my place at the microphone. Thank you, David. For those who don't know me, I'm Sarah Mitchell, CEO of Mitchell Innovation Labs. I'm also the owner and chairperson of Nova Holdings. The whispers grew louder. Michael jumped to his feet. This is ridiculous. Nova Holdings is just an investment firm that. that owns 51% of Mitchell Consulting Group's shares. I finished for him. Through a series of carefully structured acquisitions over the past year, Nova Holdings has become the majority shareholder of your company, Michael. Our father's face had turned an interesting shade of purple. This is impossible. I clicked a button, bringing up detailed ownership diagrams on the presentation screen. It's not only possible, it's done. The paperwork was finalized Tuesday morning, which means, I turned to Michael, you don't have the authority to sign this contract. You can't do this, Michael sputtered. The board won't stand for it. Actually, David Chen stepped forward. The board has already approved these changes. Sarah showed us evidence of some concerning business practices under your leadership. I opened my laptop, displaying a folder labeled Michael's Greatest Hits. Backdoor deals, stolen proposals, illegal bid interference. Nothing major enough for criminal charges, but more than enough to justify new management. The room had gone deadly quiet. Everyone was watching the family drama unfold like a high-stakes tennis match. You planned this? Michael accused, his voice shaking. You let me think I'd stolen your contract. No, Michael, you did steal my contract. You just didn't realize that the contract wasn't the real prize. I smiled. You were so busy trying to take what was mine that you never noticed me taking everything that was yours. This is outrageous. Our father stood up. I'll fight this. With what evidence? I asked calmly. The shares were all purchased legally on the open market. Nova Holdings is a legitimate investment firm. Everything is properly documented and board approved. I paused. Or would you like me to share the evidence of how you've been handling the company's offshore accounts? He sat down abruptly. Now then, I turned back to the audience. Let's proceed with the real signing ceremony. I nodded to my assistant, who brought forward a new contract. Aerotech will be working with Mitchell Innovation Labs as originally planned. Mitchell Consulting Group will be undergoing some restructuring. You can't just take my company, Michael shouted. Our company, I corrected, and I already have. But don't worry, you can keep your job. Junior analyst seems about right for your actual qualifications. The next hour was a blur of signatures, photographs, and press statements. Michael stormed out halfway through, our father trailing behind him. I didn't care. I was too busy watching my real plan come together. By evening, the news had spread through the business world. Sarah Mitchell, the little sister who'd started her own company rather than join the family business, now controlled one of the largest consulting firms in the country. I sat in my office, my new office in the Mitchell Consulting Group building, looking at the city lights. My phone had been buzzing nonstop with messages from family members, business associates, and reporters. I ignored them all except one. Congratulations, David Chen's text read. Your brother never saw it coming. I smiled, remembering Michael's smug face when he thought he'd stolen my contract. He'd been so focused on the small prize that he'd missed the bigger game entirely. My assistant knocked on the door. Your brother is here. Says he needs to talk to you. I looked at the org chart on my wall. The real one this time, showing both companies under my leadership. Send him in. And Linda? Has security on standby. Michael slunk in, his earlier arrogance completely deflated. Sarah, please, we can work something out. I'm your brother. Funny, I replied, not looking up from my computer. You didn't seem to care about that when you were stealing my contracts. That was business. This is different. Now I did look up. No, Michael. This is business too. The difference is I played it better. I pushed a folder across the desk. Here's your new contract. Junior analyst position, starting Monday. Standard probationary period. He stared at the folder like it might bite him. You're not serious. Dead serious. Take it or leave it. But remember, your other option is trying to find a job after being fired for ethical violations. I smiled. Your choice. After he left, clutching the folder like a life preserver, I walked to the window. 5 years ago, I walked away from this building, determined to build something of my own. My father and brother had laughed, certain I'd fail. Instead, I built something bigger than they'd ever imagined. Something they never saw coming because they were too busy underestimating me. My phone buzzed one last time, a text from Michael. I hope you're happy. You've destroyed our family. I typed back a single response. No, Michael. I just showed you what it feels like to have something stolen by family. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just winning, It's making sure they understand exactly why they lost.